How does a dictator with total control still feel completely unsafe? The more power Stalin gained, the more enemies he seemed to see, and the more blood he spilled, well, the more he wanted to spill. The Great Purges weren't just about eliminating opposition. They were about Stalin's growing paranoia and the creation of this entire society based on paranoia, fear, and a complete denial of the reality directly in front of you. Why did the purges happen? Well, firstly, what were the purges? The purges were a series of campaigns to remove Stalin's enemies, his real ones, his imagined ones. In 1937 alone, 1 million people are arrested and 680,000 people are murdered. The best way to understand the purges is it was Stalin's entire campaign to eliminate anyone who dared think, say, or do something against him. Why the purges happened? Well, it began in 1934 with the murder of a rising star in the party, Sergei Kirov, the guy on this slide here. His murder is a little bit sketchy. Party members were supposed to have bodyguards, they just didn't show up to work that day. Stalin says that he was killed by an ally of Trotsky, but really, Stalin probably had Kirov killed himself. But regardless of who killed him, Stalin says Kirov's murder is clear proof that there is a Trotskyite plan to overthrow the government, and this gives him a reason to begin to purge the enemies from within the Soviet Union. Stalin does this because he has a lot of rivalries with the old Bolsheviks. The old Bolsheviks were people who were in the party before the revolution in 1917. Not people who joined once the Bolsheviks were winning, but the people who joined way back when they were just a fringe revolutionary book club. He gets Trotsky all the way in Mexico City because he never forgave him for standing against him in the leadership struggle. He never forgave him for calling him a grey blur. He gets Zinoviev and Kamenev because he never forgave them for siding with Trotsky in the leadership struggle. And he even gets Bukharin because he never forgave him for still supporting the NEP, the new economic policy, after Stalin decided he didn't like it anymore. And probably the main reason the purges happened was economic. There is rapid industrialization happening because of the 5-year plans, and the Soviet Union needs people to work for next to no money in really dangerous conditions in really inhospitable locations like Magnitogorsk and Siberia and Vladivostok. Who better to get to do that work than slaves? In the Soviet Union, they decide that prisons don't need to exist. Instead, they will have gulags, which are work camps. The idea that if people convicted of crimes work and do good, honest work for 8 to 10 years, that will reform them. So why did the purges happen? The inciting incident was the murder of Kirov, and it gave Stalin an opportunity to settle old scores and keep the economy of the Soviet Union afloat. How did the purges happen? Well, it's all down to this man on the slide, Yezhov. The period from 1934 to 1937 is called the Yezhovina, the era of Yezhov, because he is the director of the NKVD, the secret police in the Soviet Union. The purges accelerate rapidly under Yezhov, called a wicked dwarf by Stalin, wicked not meaning good in this context, because he gives people arrest quotas. He says to his officers, you have to arrest a certain number of people this year. That's a big issue because what if that number of crimes aren't committed? Then what do? Well, you arrest random people, and the genius, the evil genius of Yezhov is that he incentivizes denunciation. He encourages citizens to snitch on each other. Basically, citizens are rewarded and protected if they denounce their neighbors. This could be because they said something in favor of Trotsky. This could be because they said something anti-Stalin. This could be anything really, but they are encouraged to denounce each other. The purges also happen through show trials, and the point of this is to show the power that Stalin has. In 1936, he has a very public trial of Zinoviev and Kamenev. Their crime is allying with Trotsky. Did they do it? Obviously not, but they're still executed. In 1938, Bukharin, the golden boy of the party, as Lenin called him, is found guilty of the same charge. The NKVD practice torture, they kidnap. The interesting thing with the NKVD is nearly everyone is convicted through confession. Why confession? Well, because there's actually no evidence. The NKVD force people to confess because they say, well, if you don't confess to this crime, then we'll get your family, we'll get your friends. That's why nearly everyone convicted of a crime in the Soviet Union confesses. Stalin also targets the army with his purges. The Red Army, 13 of the 15 army commanders and 50% of the officer corps are purged. The government as well. 70% of the 1934 Central Committee are purged, which means that everyone in the Central Committee in 1935 is a Stalinist. And through this whole time period, 8 million people are placed in the gulags, the vast majority of whom did not deserve 10 years of hard labour, a big majority of whom probably didn't even really do anything. And the main thing for your essays, what were the consequences of the purges? Well, one, it solidified Stalin's complete control of the Soviet Union. There is an atmosphere of fear, mistrust, and paranoia. There's a joke where they say, why do Soviet dentists remove people's tonsils through the back of their neck? Because no one will dare open their mouths. And then there's another joke which says that Stalin left his pipe in a room and he asked the head of the secret police to find out who did it. And the guy says, well, sorry, but they've all died during interrogation, making light of the fact that the NKVD would torture people into confessing to things that they didn't do. There's all opposition is removed in the Soviet Union. The only way to get to high office is if you're a loyal Stalinist. This creates a very negative feedback loop where Stalin is only ever told the things he wants to hear, which partly explains why the second and third 5-year plans go so badly. The economy is now reliant on forced labour. I've written that the gulags are completely self-perpetuating. The economy of the Soviet Union will now not survive without slavery, which means that they have to keep arresting people, even though they know they haven't done anything. The army is obviously massively weakened. Why did the Soviet Union lose to Finland in 1939? Why are they beaten so badly by the initial wave of the Blitzkrieg? Well, it's obvious. It's because Stalin has purged all the Trotskyites. Trotsky was the one who won the Civil War. All the good officers were Trotsky allies, and Stalin's got rid of them all. And Stalin has given in to his paranoia, but the purges did not quench his paranoia. They just made it worse. He gets more and more paranoid the more and more people he kills. And the final happy ending to the story, really, is that when Stalin dies, it's directly his own fault. He has purged, deported, executed that many doctors that no doctor will operate on him after he's had a stroke, which he didn't need to die from. So in a nice way, Stalin dies directly because of his own paranoia, but